wanna start a flame in your heart. In my heart I have but one desire, and that one is you. No other will do. I've lost all ambition for worldly acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love, and with your admission that you feel the same, I'll have reached the goal I'm dreaming of. Believe me, I don't wanna set the world on fire. Oh, I just wanna start a flame in your heart. Oh, I do. And in my heart I have but one desire, and that one is you. No other will I've lost all ambition for worldly acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love, and with your admission that you feel the same, I'll have reached the goal I'm dreaming of. I don't wanna set the world on fire. No, I just wanna start a flame in your heart.
That's what's up. I'm back, bitches. All right. So no matter how hard this attempt goes, yeah, I will always, it's like herpes, right? It'll just keep coming back. Truth cannot be silenced. Sorry. So let's start this again. Today, I'm going to give you insight on what you need as tools and what you're going to be finding out. This popcorn, this enjoy the show, isn't happenstance, happen chance. It doesn't mean sit back and watch the movie. It means that everything you're watching is scripted and written, and it's only a perception. We'll talk about actual and perceived so you understand. And see, Andy Breitbart actually had a magnificent insight on this. So we're going to go back to his to that old interview of his, and I'm going to tell you what a lot of people think the vaccines were for. You know, a lot of people are like, well, they cause autism. But what does that really mean? And you're going to understand why it exists. Here we go.
Those that disagree with them, or the right, the conservative movement, for just allowing for it to happen and not to fight back.
Segment 2 is, what difference does it make? Let me quote you again. Andrew Breitbart, the popularity of American movies, I'm quoting you, quote, allows for a very parochial political sensibility in this town, Hollywood, to be propagated around the world. And people just assume Well, that's Hollywood. That's the voice of the American people, close quote. So Hollywood is messing up our foreign policy. It's more subtle. Give me what difference does it make that Hollywood is so far to the left? It's a small community, a few thousand lefties running the entertainment business. So what?
Well, I mean, would you hire, if Madison Avenue is willing to hire an actor and give him $1 million to sell Sapporo beer in Japan, that actor must be worth that money, because they're going to get the audience to buy that specific brand of beer. When the collective of Hollywood sends a message to the rest of the world that affirms the worst narrative about the United States, that only tells half of the story, or perhaps not even half of the story, it ends up having a net effect, especially when a left-leaning European press, their sensibilities are in simpatico. And what I think is at play is a lot of insecure actors who didn't go to college and feel intimidated by people of a higher intellect, take their movies to Cannes or San Sebastian, and they find themselves not around the working class of France or Spain. They find themselves around the elite of the elite of the elite. And they're
foolish enough to suppose that just because they smoke their cigarettes like this, French critics are superior somehow.
Right. Well, look, there's such a limitation of the point of view that comes out of Hollywood, especially on political movies these days. But even movies like Wolverine that's out right now, I
haven't seen it yet, but my
there's
teenage boys came home.
There's an there's the bad guy in the movie is a repressed military guy who has who in one subliminal scene has a little cross on, his lapel. And
the James Bond, what's his name? Daniel Craig, the new Bond.
Yeah.
The second Bond movie, which I rented the other evening. The bad guy, it's unbelievable.
Right. Well, it's
the Americans
nonstop.
are trying to take over.
There are two. Look, you cannot get a film produced now that has Islamist terrorists. You can get movies produced. In fact, you see them all over the place, in which people of traditional values or corporations, American corporations, are the bad guys. And I know people within the system who tell me how this plays out. One thing I've been able to find out over the last 10 years is more money now comes from foreign box office, 65% to 35%. That wasn't always the case.
You make most of your money on your foreign releases.
So you're catering to the foreign audience, and so we may have an invested we may have an investment against radical Islam, but the rest of the world wants to kind of keep at bay and doesn't want to take them on, doesn't want to foment rage against that community.
Yeah, they don't want to do the whole Spanish Inquisition again, So this is just giving you a hint. While everyone's going after low-hanging fruit like Joe Biden, my eyes are on the real prize, the person that ushered our nation into all of this. And I should actually show you the website that is up and created, so that you can see who I'm talking about. See, all these people are, that's untouchable. That's untouchable. Maybe for you, but not for me. Maybe for you, but not for me. See, it is really important for people to understand who their enemies are, right? It's time. And now many will say, oh my gosh, Tori, right now we've got Biden as posing as president. Our nation is going tits up. They're introducing new variants and they're going to lock us down, and you're focused on this idiot? Oh, just watch and see how this awesome party begins. So when I would be tweeting that out in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, until they deleted me in 21, there was a reason for it. My proximity to that man was insane. The things that I know, insane. And I am so lucky that I pray. That's all I have to say. I pray. And it's important that we pray because it helps us understand what truth is. Now, truth. Do you know what truth versus reality really is? I mean, how do you tell between what reality and truth are? They're supposed to be one and the same, right? They're supposed to be one and the same. But to be frank, the only reason we evolved to survive as a people is because we are able to not see what is really there. What? Yeah. What you're seeing isn't really there. And you know who actually had said that first? Freaking Galileo. Yeah, he totally did. And they put him under house arrest because he was telling people you could see that the sun and the stars and everything up there is not revolving around us. Well, we could all see that the earth doesn't move and that the sun and the moon and the stars are going around, right? That's what we could all see, right? But he was saying that's not what your eyes are letting you see. And, you know, people believed that the center of the universe was the earth. And this is what you see. But it is not so. Your eyes, to believe it, you must see it. Well, you know, that kind of depends. Because for 2,000 years, people thought that the earth was the center of the universe. And, you know, here comes Galileo like, yo, no, the earth is actually kind of moving too, and is definitely not the center of the universe. You're not that special. And so what they did is they said, oh, you know what? This guy's talking too much. We can't have him going out into the streets telling people these truths. We're supposed to tell them how we're the ultimate. We're supposed to train these people to listen to us. And this guy is so defiant. There you go. They put him under house arrest for it. Because nobody likes to be told that their eyes and their ears aren't telling them the truth. Nobody likes that. Everybody hates the truth. When someone speaks the truth, they yell at it. They hit it. They pull its tongue out. They throw it in the darkness because they don't want to listen. Now, you know, Galileo was pretty much an OG, man. That guy, they had nothing on him. This guy was like a super OG, okay? Super OG. So while he was under house arrest for saying blasphemous things and saying that the earth isn't the center of the universe and people aren't that special and stuff, right? In that respect, he also said that, you know, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you feel isn't real either. What? What do you mean it's not real? So basically, let's pretend the color blue. Let's take the color blue, for example. This is what he meant. Colors, we see them with our eyes, right? Well, if everybody had no eyes, would there still be color? Would there still be color if everyone had no eyes? Would it exist if you didn't have eyes? If everybody on the planet, right, toroidal, planes, whatever, if they suddenly had no eyes, no animals had eyes, no people had eyes, nobody had eyes, would colors still exist? That's a question you should ask yourself. Would colors still exist if there were no eyes? Because remember, this is a perfect example because we have people that are colorblind. So for them, some colors don't exist. Does it make the color, I don't know, a specific blue not exist because you're colorblind? It exists for Mary, but not for John. So the truth, reality versus the truth. Oh, That's something you should allow to percolate. So let's talk reality versus truth, right? Reality versus truth. What is your reality? So your reality relies on your ability to perceive situations, your consciousness, how you see things. There are people that wake up every day and they see things, you know, in a different color spectrum because they cannot see all colors, right? There are people that wake up every morning and they think, you know, there's flames all around them, right? You call them insane, but they see fire everywhere. They're just like, the floor is lava, period, right? That's their reality. So your reality is a construct of your consciousness and what you perceive and interpret as such. So that having been said, what does science say about this? Whatever, right? What science says. Now, what Galileo had said, and what I'm telling you is that if something is to exist, it must exist if the person perceiving it doesn't exist. So if all of us were deaf, would music exist? If all of us were deaf, would we know about music if we were deaf? Or would we be seeing music like synesthesia, right? I'm just trying to get you into that mindset to understand where we're going right now, okay? So if it requires someone to be removed, you have to see if all the qualities of music and light and sound and colors would still exist. But in fact, to quote Galileo, he said, all those things would be annihilated because they aren't real. So, you know, he clearly said that. Basically, that we're making shit up. The smells, the tastes, the colors, we share that reality because we all have eyes and ears. And so in essence, your reality is built by your experience. See, a blind person will never have the experience of blue. You can tell him about it and you can educate him on what blue may look like, but they can't see it. So basically, we're fabricating our reality. We are building our reality ourselves. And collectively, we are being ushered as one to agree on certain things. Like there's a forest green and a Kelly green. They're all on different spectrums, right? So we fabricate our reality. And objective reality, one would say, is what? Well, physicists would say that, you know, that whatever it is would continue to exist even if the person that's perceiving it doesn't exist. So does a rock exist because you're blind? Yeah, it's still there. You'll fall down on your face if you trip over it. Therefore, that's part of your reality, that you have a rock in front of you. But color, I mean, that's pretty interesting. Many people say the easiest example is to say, well, the sun. For example, the sun existed before any life. You know, scientists say that. I don't. The sun existed before any life. So therefore, if all people disappear from Earth, the sun will still exist. But is that true? That's a question. That's a philosophy question. That's a really big think question, right? So here's where we're going to understand what truth it really, really is. And it's not what you think. Now, again, Andy Breitbart told you about Hollywood and how they perceive, how the rest of the world, number one, perceives us as certain, that we have a certain ideology because Hollywood is pushing it. But in essence, that's not the case, right? But who's going to stop them? Because they have the bigger microphone. And how other countries are funding it. Well, I want you to hear what Rose McGowan had said about the hidden rules of Hollywood.
And what is Hollywood like when you're a teenager? What is that whole experience like? It's also maybe different now. So
yeah, I don't know. I did that, and then I went away for a bit, and then I went back and did another movie. And then by 19, you could say I was really in it. what is Hollywood like? It was filled with all of these rules that were never written down anywhere, but everyone knew the rules and everyone passed these rules on to you. Female agents were big in my life, and they had definitely a hand in telling me the rules that I had to abide by, such as, you know, you have to have long hair, so the men in Hollywood want to have sex with you. If they don't want to have sex with you, they're not going to cast you. And they said it in more aggressive terms. And I guess I figured they knew, and I didn't want to be homeless again, so I grew out my hair. And that kind of led to the start of this external life. It was like my internal and my external self were so wildly divergent, but stuck together. And it was almost like doing deep undercover work as a famous woman. It was really weird. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I always knew it wasn't going to be the big deal in my life.
It wasn't going to be the big deal. So you're always kind of playing a part as
Yeah.
a person that plays a part.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. And you're now getting kind of really deep into this. Well, you've called it a patriarchy in LA. And I was wondering if you could talk a little more about that, because you talk about it in the book, and you have a great stat about the Directors Guild. But it's not just about men that keep this in place.
No, it's women too. It's not, you know, the patriarchy takes all of us. It's not like, oh, there's 49% of the population men and they're ruling everything and we're just here like, no, women actively support this power structure. And they actively support a power structure that doesn't support them, which is by definition a cult. And Hollywood, it's almost like biblical. It goes back to like the wizened old man like on his throne, like going like this. And whenever these kind of edicts are handed down, oh, you have to do this or the studio will be really unhappy with you. Oh, you have to do this magazine cover where you're wearing nothing but an ammo belt, or the studio will be really unhappy with you. Studio will be really unhappy with you. And that's like the God voice talking to you. And you can really substitute one for the other. It's rather chilling, I think.
And it's like 96% of the Directors Guild are men.
Yeah, 96% in the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, are men. And that statistic hasn't changed since 1946. So it's just a really narrow view. And it's primarily white male. And that's just doesn't reflect what I see on the streets. And there's nothing wrong with white men. But we don't only want to have their viewpoint.
So that was interesting. So we've got Andy Breitbart's side that they're doing, they're fags, right? Film Actors Guild going out there, pushing a message that is not ours out into the public, making it seem like, oh, America believes this because this is what's going on there. It's like that, what was it, that Wakanda movie, right? That was totally put there to create division. Or have you seen those? Like there's movies out there purposely created to cause division, right? Purposely created to cause division. And why, right? What is that they're going for? Well, it's controlling the narrative, of course, and it's busting truth versus reality. I mean, if you constantly see something, you'll just accept it as reality. You have to go back in time to your thoughts and to how you thought of things and how you felt about things. Speaking of feelings. So autism and vaccines and injuries and changes to children, which my child was injured from. I've made that clear. I had her taken for stem cell chelation therapy because she changed from one day to another. So it isn't something that's like been debunked unless you've had a kid that's had it. But here is what they really were striving for. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's called alexithymia, which means that you don't have words to express your feelings, meaning you don't have feelings, meaning you lack compassion and empathy.
Monday. Today's question is, what is alexithymia? So alexithymia is a construct, and sometimes it's thought of as a personality construct or a condition that involves difficulty identifying feelings or recognizing feelings or emotions in other people. Alexithymia is not a mental health disorder, but it is a construct we oftentimes see when certain mental health disorders are present. We can think of alexithymia as having both internal and external components. So with the internal component, we see that somebody has difficulty identifying their own feelings, describing those feelings, expressing those feelings. So there's a deficit in awareness of feeling. Also, there's difficulty differentiating between feelings and bodily sensations. We also see a decrease in imagination, and thinking is restricted to more concrete and logical than abstract. It's also noted here that dreams can be affected by this internal component of alexithymia. Dreams are basic and realistic as opposed to having a lot of fantasy. So again, consistent with the decrease in imagination. Also, we see increased impulsivity with alexithymia. Now, as far as the external component, this is a failure to recognize emotions in other people. And just like the internal component, this can be specific to certain emotions. Alexithymia is on a continuum. So someone could have difficulty recognizing sadness or fear, but be able to recognize enthusiasm. So we see that alexithymia can be challenging because it causes suffering, it damages relationships potentially, and also it can hurt careers.
So let me stop there. It was a couple of years ago that I did a show, and I showed you a clip of a weapon that was being created, which was targeting the God gene. And what that is that there's specific areas in the brain that allow one to feel God, to feel that there is a creator, and others that just desensitize them from having that. Alexithymia was considered a mental disorder, meaning that you had no ability to express emotions correctly. You would use logic. And when someone would say hurtful things to you, you really didn't give a shit, right? And when people were laughing, you didn't know if they were laughing at you or with you. And when you would, and you don't have, the need when you say things, you're not fishing for compliments, you're just saying it. So there's a big spectrum of that depending on your expression and I guess what effects it's had on you. That's why some people that have alexithymia, for women lately, it's been an increase in libido. Like, women are not sexually active anymore in their 20s. I mean, decades ago, women in their 20s were horny as shit. They would be, having one-night stands every day. Things are different now. Children weren't as impulsive, but they were more expressionate. They loved to hug. They loved to have conversations, right? And they would see someone hurt and they would hurt too. They would have that empathy, that sympathy. People would be sympathetic. So, a good example is, for me, it was one of the most horrific scenes I had ever seen, and it wasn't that bad, because I've seen people turn to hamburger in front of me, but this, for me, hurt me. It was in Washington, D.C. There was a protest going on, and there was an old man. He was frail. He was really old, and he was holding up a sign about life, to be pro-life, right? And he just stood there. And there were young women screaming almost rabidly about, their right to abortion. And the one blonde girl, as she was dancing around him and screaming, knocked the sign off and knocked him down. And she didn't care. She didn't care that this frail man that has been on this planet, so many decades more than her, she attacked him. And another one is the video where they took that kid that was autistic and tied him up. You know, those 3 black teens. Was it in Illinois that they did it? I don't remember. Michigan, where they took this teen that was autistic and were spitting on him, made him drink pee, eat poop. They beat the crap out of him while they had him strapped to a radiator, and they were live streaming it, and people were like cheering it on. There was no empathy there, no sympathy, right? And while many people call this evil, the only way humans that are innately good to become like this is to be raised as such, or their software to be manipulated. And I'll explain that. So I want this doctor to just continue so that way you can understand the different terms and how he explains this disorder, which now has become one and the same with autism.
So even though it's not a mental health disorder, it certainly has mental health consequences in a number of presentations. We can also think of alexithymia as having 2 dimensions, cognitive and affective. And this lets us categorize the deficits in terms of thinking or feeling. So on the cognitive side, it's identifying, interpreting, and describing feelings. And on the affective side, it's experiencing and expressing feelings. So somebody could have a deficit in the cognitive dimension, but not as much in the affective, or the opposite can be true. Most times we think of alexithymia, though, we think of deficits being present on both the cognitive and affective dimensions. Now, as I mentioned, alexithymia is not a mental health disorder, but it's often comorbid with specific mental health disorders. We tend to see alexithymia more with narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and some depressive and anxiety disorders, as well as substance use disorders. There are also a number of other mental health disorders that we see alexithymia to one degree or another. So it's fairly common when we look at all of psychopathology. We believe that alexithymia affects about 8% of males and 2% of females. We know that alexithymia can interfere with mental health treatment. So if somebody has one of those mental health disorders or another mental health disorder and alexithymia, the alexithymia can get in the way of the treatment because a lot of the mental health modalities focus on being in touch with feelings and being able to identify feelings in other people, for example, to build better relationships. So alexithymia obstructs improvement in a number of presentations. So how can we treat alexithymia? Well, if it becomes the focus of treatment, there are a variety of ways that we can address it. A lot of times we think of mental health therapies for alexithymia that focus on feelings and bodily sensations and increasing awareness. So right away, a modality like Gestalt therapy would come to mind. It can also be treated from the other point of view, from one of the cognitive behavioral therapies, like rational emotive behavior therapy or cognitive therapy. So with these therapies, the logical side would probably be looked at first. So really working to identify the thoughts and see how those could be connected with feelings, and from there, build awareness to feelings. So with alexithymia, of course, when we talk about the logical thinking associated with it, we're not talking about an increase in logical thinking ability. We're simply talking about a restriction. So the awareness of feelings, that component has a deficit, and all that remains would be a concrete and logical thinking style. The abstract is removed. However, when using cognitive therapy, I still believe in a number of presentations this could be a good match, because you have a concrete place to start with the logical, and then you can move to the feelings. There are a number of other modalities that can be used to treat alexithymia, as well as the disorders that tend to co-occur with it.
So this guy has some really good, really good videos out there. Let's see, his channel is Dr. Todd Grande. He's pretty good. Now I wanted to show you this really fruity video. The girl was very distracting. But you're going to understand why I'm showing this to you. It's quite important. Take a
For
listen.
most people, articulating your emotions might be uncomfortable or embarrassing, but they can do it if they try. For some people, simply identifying what it is that you're feeling can seem impossible, and expressing your emotions is like trying to jump over the moon. Before I really get into what alexithymia is, I want to mention Cynthia Kin's excellent post, Emotional Dysfunction, Alexithymia, and ASD, and thank her for her excellent work in breaking down the topic into more accessible pieces, and for her insight that informed this video. Unlike many of my other video topics, right now alexithymia is not widely considered a condition or disorder by the psychiatric field, but more of a personality construct, or a kind of theory used to describe people who have trouble verbalizing emotions. While difficulty verbally expressing your emotions is a big part of alexithymia, hence the name, there is a bit more to it. So what is it like to have alexithymia? I don't have it myself, so I had to reach out to a lot of people who do in my research for this video, including my husband Marvin. I also read a lot, and I'll link my sources in the video description box. As I talk about this, it's good to keep in mind that every person is unique, and so their experience with alexithymia will be too, and that there are degrees in which people experience alexithymia, so mildly, moderately, more severely. But what experiences are common amongst people who have alexithymia? Difficulty distinguishing between emotions and bodily sensations is common in people with alexithymia, as well as, of course, difficulty identifying the emotions that you are feeling and difficulty expressing your emotions to other people. Many people with alexithymia will also be stimulus seekers and may think and process best when they can interact with their environment and externally work through things. I find that anecdotally, a lot of people who have alexithymia are kinesthetic learners who do best when they can be hands-on. Some autistic people I've spoken to believe that they didn't always have alexithymia, but they developed it when their attempts to express themselves or emote were met with disdain, disapproval, or anger from non-autistic people in their lives. Other autistic people believe that they have always had alexithymia and that it's just another feature of how their brain works. And I should note that you don't have to be autistic to have alexithymia. Alexithymia can occur in non-autistic people as well. When it comes to living with alexithymia, some people really struggle with it and others don't mind. I would only consider alexithymia a problem when the person with alexithymia themselves considers it a problem. People with alexithymia may have something known as flat affect. This can look a lot like speaking in a monotonous voice or speaking without much inflection of tone. It can also present as atypical facial expression, the most common presentation being flat or very subtle facial expressions. You can also have a flat affect without having alexithymia, something sometimes seen in autistic people. And it's possible to have a flat affect at some times and not others. I do when I'm very nervous or understimulated, or when I'm in an environment with unfamiliar people. A person who has flat affect has the same potential to experience the same vast range of human emotion as anyone else. They may just not be able to identify or express their emotions, or they may just express it through different facial expressions or tone of voice, or not at all. It's important to remember that alexithymia is real, that it can be a real struggle to live with, so you should never get angry at someone for having alexithymia. This especially goes for children. Children with alexithymia or flat affect need a safe environment where they feel free to express themselves, to work through their internal input, and figure out how best to cope with the way their brain works. You should never punish or shame a child for having alexithymia or for struggling with things that come easily to you. Some people reported to me that their alexithymia affects their ability to empathize, specifically in regards to cognitive empathy. Without going into too much detail, as empathy is its whole own video, there are two major components to empathy, affective and cognitive. Cognitive empathy, which many autistic people report that they struggle with, is when you mentally take the place of someone else to guess or determine their emotional state. What people often call standing in their shoes or seeing things from their perspective. Alexithymia can complicate an autistic person's attempts to guess what other people are feeling, as emotions in general can be a realm of mystery. There are no known medications or medical treatments for alexithymia. Some people have found skill-based psychotherapy to be helpful, types such as cognitive mindfulness and dialectical behavior therapy, as those therapy programs encourage people to practice frequent introspection and to identify emotions in themselves and others. Other more structured therapies that people have reported helpful include art therapy, music therapy, focusing on songs with lyrics, and dance and movement therapy.
So basically, why am I showing you this? Well, first of all, it's important to know what alexithymia is, right? Because one thing that I've said is that people lack compassion and empathy, and we see this everywhere. Social media has allowed evil to be amplified and good to be amplified. And this is because we're at an age where the veil is thin. And if you have a lot of evil in you, boy, is it going to shine. And if you have good, boy, will that shine. Now, alexithymia is basically not putting a stop to interacting with other people emotionally. Removing feelings, not catching feelings, right? Seeing things objectively. The question would be those of morals. We go to the point of morals. And I say this because if you understand that your morals can be shaped by what? Logic. Well, there's one person that we need to throw off the train and then everybody lives. Do you throw the person off the train or take the risk that everyone's going to die? That's basically the question. Do you just select someone? Does someone then decide that they're just going to sacrifice themselves and they don't know if everyone's going to die, but they just assume that everyone's going to die if someone doesn't go? That is a problem. Right? That's a dilemma. I'm just, spitballing here, not a specific question. But do you, these are the questions that one should ask themselves. And what we realize is that we have toxic emotions very high globally right now. Louis Hay said it best. When we forgive and let go, not only does a huge weight drop off our shoulders, but a doorway to self-love opens, right? And that basically means that there's a strong physical connection that people have, a very strong one between our emotions and our physical selves being. Every single time we feel something, it's basically changing your DNA. And I'll demonstrate that and how that happens. So if you're in a place where you're just pissed off all day long, or you're in a state of love and feeling like super awesome, your life around you feels different. Your body feels different, and you're in a different state in general. It's really important to understand that there's many children out there that have been tortured, neglected, abused, and, by people that should be protecting them. And I struggle with this. I say this many times, and I beg for strength for this. But to forgive is one of the biggest acts of love for yourself. And that's something that I'm struggling with on many levels. I'm struggling to forgive all those people that are misleading people who have their ear, who have given them their ear. I'm struggling on a personal level for people that were part of my life for 2 decades that have caused immense evil. I'm struggling. I can't. I'm struggling on all levels, and I'm sure all of you are. I'm struggling with a neighbor that sits there and tells me, I'm racist because my color isn't the right tone. Everyone struggles with that. That's a really difficult thing to do. I actually don't struggle to forgive people that troll me and attack me. I don't find it difficult to forgive them. Because I know that in their lifetime, they're going to regret it, right? People that have done harm to me or have used me or took advantage of me or hurt me or threw something at me or whatever. I know that the vengeance and the redemption isn't mine to seek, but someone else's. Regardless, if I troll, because a lot of people are like, whoa, you troll. Of course I do. And it's not for them. It's to prompt the people's ears that are opposed to them. Like, for example, Ali Akbar. He's telling people to give him money so he can make them rich, so they can fund the revolution. He also told them that he told Sidney Powell to remove things from my affidavit. It's the most insane thing ever. Like, why would she even listen to someone named Ali Abdul Akbar, whatever? But I feel bad because I know what is coming. I know what they are going to go through. Every single patriot, pay with a Y, triot, I know what they're going to have to go through. And it hurts me because it didn't have to be like that. There was time to turn around, you know, these things. I feel bad because I know what they're going to go through. So in that essence, I forgive them. But forgiveness is a very big thing, right? Because it helps us work with toxic feelings that we have, right? I have a toxic relationship with the media. I can't stand them, right? I can't stand them, that they're obfuscating things, that they're, you know, not allowing certain voices to be heard. I mean, even if someone's a lefty, right? And you're having an event, why would you bar them? You're no different. Censorship is censorship. This cognitive dissonance that you're more right than others is the same shit we read in Animal Farm back then. No one is more righter than another. The only person that is the most righteous is not even a person, it's God himself. So when people think, well, I'm more right or I'm more this, right? So you need to shut up and listen to what I have to say. That's a problem. You know, and many will say, well, you do that. And it's like, no, mine is actually truth, right? It's not a perspective. It's not a friend's thing, right? This is actually raw, unfiltered, blanked out freaking truth, not decoding shit, not my friend said so, or the fifth cousin of the third cousin of the cousin over there that I met at a rally underneath, you know, shut up. No. Truth is truth. I wanted to respond when I was at the doctor's office today. I wanted to respond to someone who was like, hey, I need some help over here defending Tori. I don't need to be defended. Truth needs no defense. It stands on its own. Let them rip it apart. How many times in history have you seen good and truth be torn apart only to be resurrected way stronger than anything? So, toxic emotions is what we have. Toxic emotions. And it's not just the fact that we can't forgive. It's that we don't understand how we can create everything. Remember what Galileo said, that everything is manufactured and perceived by you. Therefore, what you feel changes your reality, and in essence does change your attitude. How many of you have gotten up in the morning and stretched and felt like there was an extra pep in yourself? How fucking awesome was that day? All right. How many of you were like, yeah, that day fucking rocked. I did everything. Like by noon, I had so much shit done. Everything felt great. Food tasted better. My body was working better. I was able to do a lot of things. Right? How many of you? Because your attitude was great when you got up. Probably a great dream, perfect timing on waking up. But then those of you that get up and you stub your toe, right? That's it. Your whole day is fucked, right? It's completely fucked from the get-go. So right now, every single day that an American wakes up, they're waking up with the stubbed fucking toe. I've got Jen Psaki clearly stating that she is actively, that supposed administration is actively engaging in censorship. We have an administration telling us that they will be knocking on our door and sending, get this, people to check if you need the vaccine. Oh, and mind you, maybe that's where they're sending all these immigrants to with airplanes, because most of them don't even fucking speak English. So again, you're waking up every day in this horror story of liquefying human remains. True. Children being abused. True. Money being lost. True. Not knowing if your house will be standing up tomorrow. True. Not knowing if your nation's going to go to war. True. All of this is putting you in a toxic emotional state. So I thought it would be important today for us to see why this is happening, right? And why you're having this toxic effect on your life and how you can understand how your software. But before we get to that, speaking of censorship and that stub toe that we wake up to every morning, I found great commentary on the censorship by Jesse Waters, who's just been super on point lately. I freaking love him, and hilarious. But it's important to listen to what these actors, all of them, are telling you.
On social media, the White House boasting about how it's teaming up with the big tech platforms like Facebook to flag, quote, problematic posts about COVID-19, and has administration staffers working to police content online. Press Secretary Jen Psaki admitting it yesterday.
We are in regular touch with these social media platforms. We've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation.
Best word. And despite the backlash and concerns it could lead to a crackdown on speech, Psaki doubling down during a clash with our very own Peter Doocy.
For how long has the administration been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine misinformation?
Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute.
How?
Well, Peter, first of all, as you know, we're in a regular touch with a range of media outlets. Let me finish. As we are in regular touch with social media platforms.
The big concern, though, I think for a lot of people on Facebook is that now this is Big Brother watching you.
They're more concerned about that than people dying across the country because of a pandemic where misinformation is traveling on social media platforms.
And Joe Biden had this very strong reaction.
On COVID misinformation, what's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, it really, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
All right, so Jessica, if you're a government official, you can crack down on free speech and just say, hey, I'm saving lives. Saving lives. We're going to take away your First Amendment, saving lives.
I don't really see how this is cracking down on the First Amendment because
they're
everything
getting
that's
people nuked off Facebook.
No, well, they're not actually. So the study that Jen Psaki cited was publicly available. It was published actually in May. It's covered by a range of outlets that said that there were 12 main accounts that were spreading 65% of the disinformation about COVID-19. We can all Google it. I did Google it. That's for us to see. Okay. Facebook, when you post on Facebook, you do. I don't have an account, but if I did, I would post and it would be public. And there could be people in the government. There could be people in private organizations like social media companies that have a responsibility to keep people as safe as possible. And COVID disinformation does get people killed.
Doesn't matter. That the White House should be in charge of labeling what's disinformation? Because the White House, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party has a horrible track record when it comes to what disinformation is.
Look, if I want to say that drinking giraffe urine, true story, that I saw, helps me, eliminate cancer cells from my body, I should be able to fucking say that. It's my Facebook. I put it out there. People that follow me will see it, and they have their own discernment. Why would the government have any say in that? Right? That's the question. And to defend that,
I'm not sure that they have that much of a track record. They've only been in for a few months.
I mean, I said the Democrats too. Lab leak, open borders.
Okay, either way.
Laptop.
sending a memo
Russian
to
hoax.
Let me
All
finish
of that
it.
was
Let me finish it, then
disinformation.
you can
Let
come
me
back.
just put a hypothetical out, and then Greg can answer. Greg, so let's just say President
here, right?
Trump. We weren't getting anywhere. Let's say President Trump, okay, a couple years ago, colluded with Facebook to crack down on people posting about the Russia hoax.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know what? CNN's posting about the Russia hoax. It's disinformation. It's tearing the country apart. Let's nuke them. What do you think the media would have said then?
They would have gone crazy. And that's actually a really good analogy. I interrupted it. I said it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Once the government is involved with a corporation, that's a violation of the First Amendment. That's what's happening. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter if you believe it's misinformation. It doesn't matter because it's for misinformation. Every opinion could be misinformation by your definition. That's what the First Amendment is, coming out and saying your opinion. I don't trust this government. I do trust you, Jessica, but I don't trust most Democrats in defining what misinformation is, to Jesse's point. I mean, imagine the people, look at it from our perspective. Imagine the people who spent decades calling us stupid, rubes, and racists are now in charge of controlling the spread of information by using the word misinformation. Any sane person would say hell no, but we don't even have to say hell no. We can say we're totally wrong. It doesn't matter. This is a violation of the First Amendment. If you can use the misinformation against any, let's say, Republican conservative argument. A defense of law enforcement, well, you want blacks to die. Your defense of capitalism, you want the poor to die, right? A defense of school choice, you want teachers to die. Anything could be based on the fact that these people are going to die so we can control the information.
Boom.
That's why you have to stop it now. They're going to use this argument. They're killing people to control you. And there'll be times when the information comes out and it's wrong, and it'll be wrong on the left and it'll be wrong on the right. That doesn't matter. The collusion is what matters.
Here's what I think happened, Shannon. The White House really screwed up the Johnson & Johnson situation. You saw when they came out and they spread doubt about J&J, vaccination rates plummeted, never recovered, right? And so now he doesn't meet his July 4th goal for vaccinations. And he's just saying, Facebook, it's your fault. And all you people, all you right wingers, it's your fault. And we're going to get rid of you.
Well, do remember just a couple of weeks after President Biden was inaugurated, there was this piece in the New York Times and people laughed it off or whatever, but they talked to experts and they said, we need a reality czar. And what we're going to do is have a full federal government response where across agencies, these people all meet, they'll look for disinformation, they'll shoot it down, it'll go through the reality czar, who then will meet with the heads of big tech.
Did you hear that? The reality czar. They want to shape your reality. Did you hear it? The Ministry of Truth. Remember how I showed this little logo at the top when Schiff was talking? Yeah. The Ministry of Truth. Yeah, here it is. A reality czar. So we're going to take a quick break. I will see you guys in just a moment.
You're going to call us racist. You're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs. Fuck you. War.
Okay. Yo. I ain't trying to sell my soul. I just want to play my role. I just want to reach my goals. Didn't get the vax, I'm swole, I'm told. Been around the block, I'm old. Started with silver, then gold. Watching my future unfold. Tory on history mode. She bold, so she kept cooking them crows. She knows who the fuck they trying to decode. Red string, yellow brick roads. Better start switching up goals. Used to be friends, now foes. And that's just the way that it goes. They chose, now they all losing control. It's hard to climb out of that hole. They were just digging like moles. Now they all getting exposed. It blows. Trolls just shoulda enrolled, but no. Teamwork make the dream work. Let the fake news just circle and chirp. All they really tend to do is try to get paid. It's like we in a game living in the arcade. But I got quarters, I'm glad that I played. It's a whole lot of them dues that I paid. And it won't stop till I'm laying in the grave. I gotta be free, I ain't trying to be a slave. Have you ever met an angel? Red lipstick and bangles, teaching you the ones that shameful. Only got the truth, and the truth is painful. Ain't no fear for the ones that's faithful. Listen to the real news in life now. Fake news, could you please put the mic down? All the dark gonna shine in the light now. God wins and his army gonna fight now. We stand strong and we standing up right now. I record it with a pen when I write down. I'ma choose if I want it in my sight now. Read the news, we ain't listening to hype now. Don't force your views on me. Thank God he gave me the eyes to see. So we stayed away from the apple tree. And everything is just how it got to be. Yo, teamwork, make the dream work. Let the fake news just circle and jerk. All they really tend to do is try to get paid. It's like we in the game living in the arcade. But I got quarters, I'm glad that I played. It's a whole lot of them dues that I paid. And it won't stop till I'm laying in the grave. I gotta be free, I ain't trying to be a slave. Slave.
Great tune, wasn't it? I really enjoyed it. Thanks for those lyrical melodies, Dianon. Those were fantastic. I mean, his music is jamming always in my car. And Don McDonald. You know, a lot of people think that certain music resonates in other frequencies. It's not a think, it's a fact. And, you know, one person mentioned, well, doesn't rap resonate on that? Well, did you feel that? No, actually beats like that put your body into a swing, feeling something. And it's the words and the energy behind it that amplifies it. So I wanted to talk about actual versus perceived so that you understand how you can actually change your thoughts. So to create coherence, So to create coherence in your life, what you do is you use your mind. That is the actual foundation of what your mind is. It's to create some concrete coherence between what you believe and what your reality is, okay? That is, in fact, what your mind does. So if you believe, for example, that you're under threat, right? Suddenly there's signals in your bodies that are released into your blood vessels, into your cells, that are telling your body, shit, you better be on high alert. And suddenly you're irritated, you're frustrated, you're yelling, you're in attack mode, right? That's your precautionary response to, I am under threat. This is where they have all of us right now. This is why the floodgates of news have opened, which, by the way, I'm going to school Peter Schweitzer this week on his stupid commentary about Hunter Biden. I'm just mentioning that. I'm sick and tired of half-assed journalism. I'm so tired of it. Because you know what? It then perpetuates amongst the masses. You know, I had someone sit in the room and say, why are we talking about Hunter Biden? It's like, it's not. My eye's not on Hunter. It's definitely not on Joe either. Okay. But the reason that I'm so adamant on there's your concrete evidence that is irrefutable and no one is talking about it. Instead, the floodgates of, why is everyone talking about graphene oxide now? Oh, it's toxic. Yeah. So's vitamin C. And well, you know, if you take too much of it. So is vitamin B12. You can pee most of that out, but you know, whatever. So is water. So is food. So is smoking. So are drugs. So is drinking. Stop. With the fear porn, it's everywhere. Yes, it's knowledge, but people get hyped up because then suddenly they wake up because they see that and they just latch onto it like, oh my God, we've been talking about graphene for forever. Man, I befriended the dude that invented the way to mass process it. Like, come on. But the truth cannot be canceled. And that's what's important right now. The truth cannot be canceled. So what they're trying to do is to control your thoughts, and your thoughts are what are giving you those signals within your bodies to prepare your body cell by cell to be ready to attack the problem. And if there's no threat, right? Your cells don't know that. You think your cardiac cell or your uterine cell or your, epithelials anywhere. No, they just respond to the chemicals that you release because you thought of it. And suddenly, if you say you're under stress, guess what? You are literally under stress. Your body, your neck starts to hurt, your head starts to hurt, you start to sweat, you start to, salivate, whatever, right? Like salivation, right? You smell something good, suddenly you get a lot of, spit in your mouth if you're hungry, right? And you're hungry, but your body knows it too, and it's responding to it. You see, your physiology is affected by your thoughts and what your interactions are, right? So even our environment in front of us changes because of that. So your thoughts, whether they're right, wrong, or misled, whatever, they literally change your biology. And this goes back to the ancient times of, all these fruity statements that you are, what is it? You are what you eat. No, you are what you think. What you think you are. What you think you are. That is fact. So you become exactly what you think you are or what you think you're being through. And that's actually what epigenetics is based on. Epigenetics is what you believe or what you are actively garnering as a thought in your situation, right? To actually come and result into a chemistry to change your biology to become that. Meaning, if you think you're under threat, you are being preyed upon. So you are now prey. So you're giving signals to your cells to be acting like they're being preyed upon, that you're prey, right? Now, that's how the mechanism works. Hold on. Let me show it to you. I think it's better if I show it to you. Hold on. Let me see if I could do this. Give me a second. So for those of you that have been delving into all this science with all these people that are meaning well, but they're adding to it. This is why they allowed it to happen for so long, is important. Okay, let me open up this document. All right. All right, guys. So let me show you what this is. Let me get back in there. So I'm going to put this out for you guys so you understand it, right? So your thoughts actually help you become that, right? So basically your behavior is based on your thoughts. So what do? Hold on. So what we have is we have a thought which then promotes a signal, right? And then that signal creates a protein, and that protein results in your behavior, right? That's basically what happens. This is like facts of science, right? Right? So if we say that the behavior isn't supporting this, your behavior is not good, right? Or whatever is the outcome of this feeling, right? We call it that we have, like, say you have a headache, right? Your behavior is that you're acting like prey and you're stressed out. So suddenly you have a dis-ease, right? Your behavior is now your dis-ease, your disease. You're not at ease, if that helps. So basically, this is where you're at. You're at the point where you've just made yourself sick, worried sick, right? So if someone was to say that that's not true, you should ask, well, I worried myself sick because I thought that I was really worried because I couldn't get in touch with Uncle, Jim on his phone. So I was stressing out, and then my brain gave signals to my whole body. Holy shit, we're freaking out, right? And then all these proteins were made to get me into stress, right? Which then gave me the worry wart, right? So every protein to be created in your body requires a signal, right? Some form of signal, either that be a message, a prompt, a reaction, a release of something. That's how you create proteins. I mean, that's how things talk within your body. They're with proteins. Let me check the chat and make sure that people are getting this. Are you getting that? Okay. So basically that can be considered the cause of this infodemic too. Proteins, they can be defective. What I call misfolded proteins, which are called prions, right? They lead to causing higher expressions of disease, right? Because of defective proteins, right? And so proteins are responsible. So you've got a signal, a protein is released, and that causes everything else. So just so you know, a lot of people say, well, it's a genetic disorder. Most of the shit that goes through people, it's less than I think it's 1.2% of all diseases are because your genes are fucked up. Okay. And that came from Craig Ventner, who was actually part of the Human Genome Project. Okay. The majority of dis-ease is because of proteins, protein misfolding, proteins not being created correctly. Even genetic birth defects and random mutations that we have are not as disharmonious and cause that much harm as proteins, which actually demonstrate proper disease. And why do I say this? The signals, right? The signals that you put out, the thoughts that you have, the situation that you are in, well, that's the cause of more than 90% of all disease, right? All of it. So whatever signal you have out there, if you think you're being hunted, shit, you're going to be on high stress. Cortisol is going to be high. Your kidneys may dysfunction. You may have adrenal, glands going on override. On top of that, it is shown that people that have higher levels of cortisol, it's cortisol that causes the miscommunication in the proteins, and therefore cancer begins. Did you know that? That's why people that are runners and active are mostly susceptible to cancer. I know it sounds dumb. That's why they say that people, if they're 20 pounds to 30 pounds over their ideal weight, they are almost, it's almost like a buffer to not allow cancer to happen, because their proteins get to work in an environment with cortisol. So cortisol is a bad hormone. It is a stress hormone. That shit will freak you out. You'll grow old really quick. I don't care how resting bitch face you have and how much you spend on those new Chanel lined creams for your face. That shit will make you fat, stressed, and it will cause you harm. But in moderation, that's why being overweight in moderation, there is a steady flow of cortisol, which makes your cells, that bathe in it more they adapt easier to creating proteins for regular signaling pathways within that environment better, because they've been buffered. How's that? They're kind of used to it, right? It's like when you walk into someone's house and it smells like food, after 5 minutes it's gone. So there's actually a study that proved that if you're 20 to 30 pounds overweight, you're less likely to get cancer. 20 to 30, right? Not like me, 20 to 30. So it's important to understand that the signal is what causes 90% of this disease that we have as human beings. And even if there is something that is manufactured, something that is not innately created, something that is created in the lab and stuck into you, something, it's your signal that will allow it to interfere with your health. So trauma, for example, and all of you right now will be suffering PTSD for decades. For those of you that will survive decades, you will have that. So trauma is number one. because trauma interferes with any thought communications, between your brain cells to be correct. It's always going to be tainted as if you like busted up a certain section of your brain. It's just fucked up. It got bruised and it's there. So it interferes with the actual flow of information. More tangibly, let's put it this way. Let's say you have carpal tunnel syndrome, right? You have an inflamed, your inflamed ligaments there that cause, the nerves that go through there to be inflamed all the time, and that interferes with the flow of information. Therefore, your hand's not functioning correctly. Or spinal trauma. Actually that one's, when you have spinal trauma and you can't walk anymore and you're paralyzed, it's actually the secondary immune response that causes that scarring. But in the same sense, at the foundation, it's interfering with the flow of information from the peripheral nervous system to the central nervous system and back out, right? So I wanted to make that clear. So trauma is number one, and trauma is something that is also within your heart, right? You're traumatized, so it can interfere with your health. Toxins also interfere with your health, such as smoking, right, or drinking, right? A toxic chemical will cause changes within, your cells, and it'll distort the signals that your cells are giving, and therefore maybe create misfolded proteins or send signals from the brain that shouldn't be sent. It alters communication, kind of like, drinking alcohol or doing drugs, whichever, right? So the signal is based on trauma and toxins and thoughts. So there's 3 T's: thoughts, trauma, and toxin. Your thoughts are literally transplanted into chemistry, translated and transplanted within your body. So from something that is abstract, suddenly the abstract thought becomes something tangible because it translates into chemistry. So your thoughts become chemical signals within your brain, which become a tangible effect. Tangible effect. I'm trying to express it. Thoughts literally become things within your body. That is what I'm trying to explain to you. Thoughts literally become things within your body. So this is something you need to repeat to yourself. Thoughts become things because they translate into something tangible within your body. You're stressed, what happens? Cortisol increase. So the primary issue of almost anything within your existence lies between those 6 inches between your ears. Organically, there is nothing that you cannot remedy. There is this there's this video. Where is it? I knew I had it. Okay. I want you to again understand it. If I think I'm under threat, I will release cortisol, and therefore my stress is now tangible, like something you can measure. If I pee into a cup, you can measure my cortisol levels. If you take my blood, you can measure my cortisol levels. If I'm feeling happy, you can measure my happy by taking my blood. If I'm next to someone and they're releasing oxytocin, you'll be able to literally measure how much I want to jump their bones, because you can measure the chemical in my blood. They literally manifest into things. So anyone telling you anything different has no idea how the human body works, okay? So there's this video. Hold on. There it is. And this is from the same place that I usually use their videos, which is Seeker. Hold on. Let's play this. This is pretty good. This is a pretty good explanation.
DNA, and then that can change the DNA of your children or future children. I'm not here to pressure you into anything. Anthony here for D News, and you've probably heard of epigenetics. This is the idea that while the structure of your DNA doesn't change, parts of it can be turned on and off through chemical changes in your body. It's called DNA expression, and it has a lot to do with your behavior and lifestyle. So smoking and eating too much can make the genes for obesity in your body express themselves strongly. Psychological trauma and highly stressful events can affect the genes that control the brain receptor for oxytocin, which is this hormone associated with love and trust. People who sleep poorly for just a week can show changes in 700 genes. Now, the good news is that the opposite is also true. So leading a healthy life can cause your body to turn on beneficial genes. You can also reduce the genetic risk for diseases that are hereditary in your family. There's even an idea that you pass those changes on to your children. It's called epigenetic inheritance. And we used to think that its effects were minimal, that genes would reset their on-off switches between generations. But a small study published this week by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that it may play a huge part in a child's development. So researchers tracked 20 women, all mothers who had had gastric bypass surgery and lost around 100 pounds. All of them had children before and after the surgery, not for the study, but because they wanted a family. When the team compared the children born after the mother's surgery to those born before, there were about 5,698 genes that were expressed differently. And most of them were genes that are important for heart health and metabolism. And when the doctors tested the kids with the changed genes, they had healthier insulin levels, blood pressures, and their weights were better than the other kids. Epigenetics might even control love. Love, man! There are these prairie voles that mate for life. They build nests together. They get studied a lot because their relationships look a lot like human ones. In a study published by Nature Neuroscience, researchers took two voles that had been around each other for 6 hours but hadn't mated, and they injected them with this drug that was supposed to stop methylation of the genes that controlled oxytocin and vasopressin, which are the big love and trust hormones, right? Total love connection. The voles fell for each other. And when their brains were compared to a couple of voles that mated on their own, the oxytocin and vasopressin receptors looked similar. Love causes the change causes love. Something interesting. If the scientists injected two voles who didn't know each other with the drug, the love connection didn't happen. Which brings up the big question with epigenetics. How much control does it really have over us? Those voles needed some sort of pre-existing bond, even if their genes were telling them to build a tiny vole love nest and have 2.5 vole children. You might be able to restrict or strengthen the expression of a gene somewhat, but can it really fundamentally change you? What do you think? Let me know down below and subscribe for more D News.
So what he said was what they did, they actually had methylation within their DNA that was stopping the expression of oxytocin and vasopressin. And when you're stressed, you don't trust anyone, right? You can't listen to the truth. You're confused. You don't want to be around people. This is why I say it's important you get together. Because have you ever had that feeling that when you hug someone, it's just like, oh, you know, for those of you, because most of my audience is an adult audience, right? You could be in front of someone at a club, in a room and, you know, totally be platonic. But the minute you guys come in super proximity, suddenly it's like, you know, a fire's like burning in your loins and you're like, what is going on? That's a chemical release, right? That is how, you know how they say pheromones? It's not really pheromones. It's another chemical that you release within your body. And you feel this feeling, right? It's a signal. You suddenly are in proximity and you're like, yeah, I totally love the way this person smells. And it's like, yep, I'm totally hot. Boom. And then suddenly you're in a bathroom somewhere, you know, if you're in a club, I'm just saying. So it's all about chemistry, but your thoughts. When you come into proximity, trust is there when you're in proximity. When you hug, when you see the person, when you can hear their frequency, when you can, this is why it's important. We don't talk on the phone anymore. We're always on text. We don't talk. We literally are on social media. And then when we do talk, their voice sounds nothing like what you would expect because you had formulated this idea of what they sound like in your mind. So suddenly it may rub you the wrong way. How many of you have had that conversation? Oh, geez. I worked with someone for like, 21 years. God rest his soul. And it was in 2016. And he was like, well, looks like you're going to be on your own on this one. And it was the first time I ever heard his voice. And I was like, damn, you sound super girly. Like I had pictured him being some, really strong dude, like tall, like, like Ragnar, from the Vikings, because he was so damn spit and fire, right? And the way he just commanded code was just like, rah, right? But but he sounded like a sissy boy. And he's like, I was like, damn, you sound super soy. And it totally ruined it for me. That moment where I'm actually going to come, I told him that too. No filter on that. I mean, honesty is the best policy. But I was like, damn, I wanted to hear some, strong, manly voice, on the other end. And here's an old guy that sounds soy. And that's because I had imagined it and I had expectations, right? Love him, still pray for him, wherever he is. But his frequency to my ears wasn't what I expected a Gandalf, right? That's the level that I expected. That's basically it. So, it was the first time I had heard his voice. So the expectation was different. This is something that they've conditioned us to do. It's a lot. Let's all do text. Let's all do social media. Let's do email. There's no meeting in person. There's no writing letters where it's personal and you can see the other person's emotion when they're writing to you, right? How much weight did they put on the pen? Did they sit and write it and say, I'm going to take time to do this? Or were they like, writing it in their car, right? I can tell those things when I get letters. And which one was done like, no, I'm going to write it because I'll never get to do it. You can feel that because it's something tangible, right? It's a proximity. So it's important that we realize that our emotions actually affect us physically. And there have been immense studies that have proved that emotions directly affect us and the actual world around us. There was an experiment that was done a while back where they had actually put, they had DNA in a sealed container, right? It was in a sealed container and was placed near a test subject. Ooh, okay. I won't name the experiment, but the subjects that were used in this test were those that had mastered to create specific emotions. So in the presence of those that were emoting positive emotion, the coils of the DNA relaxed. Kind of like what the guy said on that video, that if you have obesity genes, eating the fast food that triggers that will relax the DNA. And that's the video that I've been showing. Remember the video that I did over 12 years ago where I'm showing, hey, this is where the DNA is relaxed. Here's where it's tightly wound, right? When it's relaxed, you get in, you access it, and you can read information and express proteins. It's like that. So the more positive the emotion was, the DNA relaxed. Those coils that I had shown a couple times, that video, the only video, well, except for you, chromatin, but that's way down the line. That video was important because it was teaching you in the simplest way to understand how much information is in that DNA, how it unwinds like coils and how it relaxes and how you access it and why it's so tight, because it doesn't want you to access it. But in this experiment, there were these same subjects who were very well trained were they placed this DNA in negative emotions, in negative environments. And you know what happened? The DNA tightened. It became so tight, there was no way you can access any of the code. It was as if it was ready to split in two. It was at that level of mitosis. And so the researchers concluded that human emotion produces effects that defy the conventional laws of physics. They actually said that in their paper. In the same kind of experiment, what they did was they wanted to observe the effect of DNA in our actual world. So light, right? Light, as I've said, just exists. So what they did was they put light photons within a vacuum, which means, it's completely no gravity, no air pressure, nothing. It's a vacuum. It's a dead end, right? And like I said, light simply exists, right? If it didn't, then this experiment would have gone different. But what happened was the light was in the vacuum, all simple. And, when they were looking at the light in a vacuum, the positions of all these photons, right, would look like they were just hanging out. They were just random. There was no pattern, right? So what happened was, in this vacuum, they decided to introduce human DNA, right? So suddenly what they noticed was in a vacuum where photons were just by themselves, they were kind of like, random, right? They just were, right? They just existed. They couldn't say, oh, they're pairing up in threes or in a line or creating a structure. But when they introduced DNA, guess what happened? The light followed the geometry of the DNA. So, in essence, photons flocked to the DNA and became part of it. And I think the term, let me see if I can pull up the paper. The term was that they are behaving surprisingly and counterintuitively. Wow. You mean we don't know why this is happening? That's basically it. And they said we're forced to accept the possibility of some new field of energy. The results of these experiments prove our emotions affect DNA, and our DNA affects our physical world. Therefore, our emotions physically change the world around us. So, if DNA can change how light behaves and emotions can change how DNA behaves, then your emotions, your thoughts that create tangible interactions can in turn change the world around you. So what we're seeing right now, and this is why I get frustrated and angry, and I know. Most of these people even think that they follow the word of God, and it's so sad. It makes me very sad to know just how they're seeing words with the wrong eyes. They're seeing it with eyes of this reality rather than the actuality. And here's where we're going to go to outcomes, actual versus perceived. And we're going to watch this guy named Melvin Tan, just some YouTuber. He was kind of cool and pretty much put it down in layman terms. And I think it's kind of cool to listen to. Take a listen.
Outcome doesn't match the perceived outcome. Well, in that situation, actually, there are two ends of the extreme. One end of the extreme is that you continue to work towards the perceived outcome, and you strive every day to do something about it, to work towards that perceived outcome itself. However, the thing is, if you're not going to be able to achieve that perceived outcome anytime soon, or within that time frame that you thought that you might, what's going to happen is you're going to feel some level of exhaustion, some level of fatigue, and even some level of disappointment. However, if you take the other end of the extreme, which means you kind of acknowledge that this is what it is, and you try to live in harmony with it, then what's going to happen is, you especially if you're someone who is always looking to make things better, then there will always be that nagging thought that, what if I have done this? What if I've done that? What if I tried this? Or what if I have bought this course, for example? Now, the truth is, in this current situation, especially with COVID-19, is many people are along this spectrum itself. But what's really important for us to recognize is that there are 3 levels of control. And I like to think of it as in terms of a spectrum. And that spectrum is basically something that you have absolute control over, and some things you have absolute no control over. And then there are things that you have somewhat of a control over. Let me explain. So things I have control over, absolute control over: what time I get up, what time I go to bed, what attitude I would choose when faced with any of this circumstance. That's what I have control over. What I have no control over is how other people are going to behave in public, whether how fast the disease, the COVID-19, is going to be spreading. I have no control over that. But there are certain things that I have somewhat of a control over. And this could be seen like, in this current situation where some of us are experiencing a dramatic decrease of income. So what are some of the things that you have control over? Well, I will believe that we have control over what we put out in the market. What are we going to put out in the market? That's what we have somewhat of a control over. But we have no control over whether people would buy it or not. However, we are able to influence them. And the way that we can influence them essentially is to be able to show and not tell. In other words, to be able to demonstrate to them what is our capability, what is our talent, what is our strength, and how we can help them solve the problem. And so if you continue to take that approach yourself, I think you will be far better off and less feeling of anxiety and frustration, because you will not fall into that category whereby you think you have control over everything and you try to work towards it, yet you never quite arrive at that perceived outcome. So what are some of the things that you have somewhat control over and that you can work on it that would be able to help bring you closer to your perceived outcome? Share with me.
So he was talking business. That was my little homage to the Patriots, right? While they're trying to control the narrative and tell you what you need to think and what you need to do, they're losing it. And it's all about income. See, this guy was talking about a pandemic. This is how I wanted it to be perceived by you. He's talking about the pandemic and products. Are you answering a problem? Are you creating Postmates or DoorDashers? Are you answering a problem? That's what you need to look to, not to try to throw a product down someone's throat. This is the way the news are. They're trying to throw narratives down your throat and throw you into panic. Let me ask you a question. Can you control COVID? Yes or no? Obviously not. Whatever they're telling you, you can't. Can you control all the food that you've eaten and you may consume? I mean, do you own a cow? No. Can you buy a cow? Maybe some of you can, maybe some of you can't. So you cannot have access to that. So, okay. So what do? Do you freak out about it? Do you change your diet and start eating crickets? Like, what are you going to do? You accept your situation. You are in a situation which you cannot control. You cannot control what the politicians are saying, but you can control what they are doing by using the tools you have. You can't control the corporations from silencing you, but you can evade their capture and or take it out of their hands. Move the ball out of their fucking court. Get together. Have coffee. Have dinner together. Eat biscuits in the middle of a park. For me, for example, I can't prep. I live in an apartment, right? How much water am I going to have in there? Do you think God would let you suffer? You just have to have faith that he's going to take care of everything you cannot control. You know, for those of you that know biblical stories, do you remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where angels came in to that place and said, and they had the task that if there's one good person, I will save them. And they caught people cooking, maybe even on the toilet, right? And caught them with their pants down, literally on the toilet, and said, hey, come with me. There might have been a lady down in the market checking out some backsplash. Hey, you, come with me, right? They were saved. And they didn't know they were being saved until they were saved. That's how it works. You have to have faith that the things that you cannot actually control will be taken care of. Because lots of people are like, should we prep? Yeah, we should always have like a 1 or 2 cases of water sitting in a closet somewhere. Yeah, we should always have some canned beans or, you know, maybe a box of MRE somewhere. Why not? I mean, we should always have some flashlights and some batteries, right? Maybe some Faraday fabric phone, right? With another electronic device like a ham radio in there, you know, one of those handheld things, you know, kind of, you should always have something just in case. You should always have something, maybe bullets, right? You should always have something, but you really can't control a lot of it. Whoa, who's that talking? Can you guys hear that? I can hear that. Where am I hearing that from? From my headphones. Okay, see how my my microphone is so loud? I could hear my kids talking. So prepping. You can't really prep. You can't. You can do what you would normally do, right? You can do what you would have in case of an earthquake, a hurricane, a flood, right? We always have that little thing, but we can't really do much. What we can do is pray and do those little things that do matter. You are still free on paper. And that really matters when you put your foot down on it. You are still free on paper. You still have your community. You'll be very surprised how many people would be there with you, standing with you. Your first meeting in Idaho may have been 5 people. The next time it'll be 10. And the next time after that, 20. And then 30. And suddenly you've got your whole county getting together for a block party or organizing. See, churches, the one thing about churches that's incredible is that people get together and they form this bond, right? Because they're part of a community together. And it is very important for everyone to think about that. It doesn't mean that you have to join a church, right? But it does matter for you when you know that 10 blocks away, 1 block away, a door away, there's someone there that has the same concerns as you, loves their nation, loves what their nation stands for, just like you, and they will be there every step of the way with you. Not necessarily in arms, maybe not, but just there with you. That when and if something were to happen and someone comes and rounds you up for not getting the jab, or rounds you up for posting a President Trump meme, or something, that they will be there and they'll be like, hey, we're rounded up together. That's what's up. See, many times I joke with friends, you know, they're going to round this up and I say, well, I'm going to see who's going to be sitting next to me and then I'll know which group I'm in, right? So if I see a lot of people that are like-minded, I'd be happy, right? So it's really important that people come into proximity, one, for that connection and to change your thoughts and your chemistry. Everyone's really disappointed. Everyone is being bombarded with a barrage of information that is useless right now. Okay, So there's graphene oxide. Great. How do we combat it? Well, we tell them no more vaccines, but all of them have it. Next, our food has it. Next, our water has it. Next, why are they banning cigarettes? Why did they ban cigarettes? Cigarettes are bad for you. Yes, I agree. They're a toxin. But why are they banning alcohol too? That's worse, right? More people die from alcohol than they do cigarettes. So you have to think about, well, I know that tobacco actually breaks down excess graphene. Oh, interesting. So does caffeine. So now we have a coffee shortage, right? Our water's tainted and fluoride is causing problems. People have been talking about this before, right? So why are we having all this come back up right now? Graphene isn't something new. It's just something hot right now. And it's not toxic as long as it's in moderation. Again, they've been experimenting with graphene on you for forever and a day. They know how their products move and where they go. I told you, Starbucks literally had it in specific coffee drinks so that they can track to where the people go. So you would pick it up at a coffee house in San Francisco, and then you'd go, I don't know, to Anaheim. That's pretty far, but whatever. And then they'd be like, holy shit, people drove all the way from Anaheim to get it. I guess we need to open up a store there. So it's been out there. It's just nobody's been telling you about it. So what you should do is sit back and use your discernment. Use that little voice inside that says, holy shit, they're telling me about graphene. Now they're censoring me. Facebook is not owned by Zuckerberg. He's just the pretend owner. The actual intellectual property is in the hands of the UN. Fuck. Wait a minute. If Twitter is private, then how did Twitter give their IP to the Obama administration, who Hunter Biden's company, along with others and the CIA, built an identical platform of Twitter for Cuba, and they did it for India, and they did it for Haiti, and they did it for the Congo, and wait a minute. It's not what they're telling us. Why are they telling us now if all of this has been there? This is what you should see. This is an infodemic. I called it last year. It's not about a pandemic. It's an infodemic, and it doesn't mean fake news. It means everything. This is a pandemonium of a barrage of information being thrown at you by many aspects, which are right and some are wrong. And instead of focusing on the microcosm of all these things, you need to step back and say, all right, we got this problem, we got that problem. So we've got censorship, health dictatorship, right? They're taking away our kids. They're imposing on our private persons, on our property. They're taking our money. They're moving us to digital currency, so we'll have zero control over our money. They've tainted our food. They've tainted our media. Wait a minute. So where is the common factor? The common factor is that you're getting all of this information from the same effectors. The people that are giving you all of this shit is where the information is coming from, and you're in that coming from. So you're in a box of a shit ton of information, and you can't find your way out. Well, get the fuck out of that box and say, all right, stop. Stop the press. Where's my problem? That's what you need to do. All right. So I can't fix this graphene, done. Can't fix this censorship right now. Let's put everything on hold. What is it that we can fix right now? That is the question you should ask yourself, and we'll answer that tomorrow. What is it that you can fix right now? What can you fix right now? That is all you have to think of. What can you fix right now? Because, many times that I've said, hey, they'll tell you everything you want. They'll be like, look at my guns. Look at this. I love America. Look at my flag. Look at this. I'm a patriot. Fuck everyone else. Patriot, right? How'd that work out for Black Rifle Coffee, huh? Never thought that they would do it, right? They're veterans, they're this, they're that, right? What happened? Because the minute they get told you better activate, they fucking activate. And it was done on purpose. They activated them on purpose right now. So that way you are even more confused. Now you don't even trust the right. And of course, well, you shouldn't. The right was always the first problem, not the left. This is why President Trump said, I ran as a Republican because Republicans are stupid. Do you know why conservatives are so stupid? Because they couldn't see that they were worse than the Democrats. That's the problem. They couldn't see that the Republicans were worse than the Democrats. The Democrats fucking tell you who they are. They wear it on their sleeves. They're bigots, right? They think they're better than you. Their shit doesn't stink, and you must obey. The right is like, yeah, totally, guns, yeah, First Amendment, yeah, hoo-ha, and pulls out, a sword to die on, right, Lindsey Graham? I'm just saying, or Grassley, how many times have you gotten my affidavits? I'm going to say this. A lot of people are butthurt. They don't like the truth. But right now, this black rifle shit, I told you it was going to happen as of July 1st. They're all going to be pulling their pants down. You're going to know where all of them sit. They're activated, full-blown force. And so what you got to see is who their common enemy is. It's obviously the people. It's a war for your mind. Because the minute they control that and how you respond to it, you're fucked. Because your thoughts become reality. And if you think you're going to eat them for lunch, guess what? You better get yourself some, toothpicks, because you're going to be picking some bullshit deep staters out of your teeth. That's what's up. And that is how you fix things. You have to step back and see, well, why are they so adamant on this? And Peter Schweitzer, I'm so pissed at him. I'm actually going to showcase him on my article too. So again, you're not going to fix all these problems. Are you going to go and force them to remove graphene from vaccines and all medications and foods? Are you going to force them to give you paper dollar? Are you going to force them? You're not going to force them to do shit, because right now you're too scared to do anything. You're sitting down, you're listening to all this information. It's freaking the fuck out of you. And it's like, hey, we've been here how long? And I've been telling you all this in little bits and pieces. And while many of you you should have just said it. Yeah. Even Jesus didn't come out and say it. He had to show his miracles, future proves past kind of thing, in order for people to wake up and see it themselves. He's not going to tell you what to think. Right? God never tells you what to think, does he? No. You have free will. So you have to think about it. Why would anybody who tells you the truth tell you, nope, you got to do it this way? Right? I'm not telling you to do it anyway. I'm actually telling you that unless you see it for yourself and take yourself out of that box, you're never going to get out. You built that box around you. And no one can help you but you. And the only way I see that all of you can help yourselves is by getting together and by realizing that there's one common enemy for all of them, on the right, on the left. Remember with Parler, what did I tell you? Even Rumble. I'm on Rumble right now, right? I'm streaming live. They don't give me any ads. I pay them over $100 so that I can stream there just to get my message out. And they don't pay me shit. I have to pay out of my pocket. But all their friends get paid. This is key. You need to be paying attention to their actions. Freedom Phone. Y'all know I have a Google Pixel 4 XL. It's for a reason. Even though I want a new one, I don't think they're ever going to build it that well. Why would you pay them to take a Google phone that has been ungoogled and they put their own thing? Graphene, really? Fuck you. I just gonna, how many of them have money into that? Why? They're going to take your data. See, just like the RNC was taking your data, just like everyone wants your freaking data. Why? Because your AI profile, you need to listen to my New Year's Day conversation about AI in China. For I think it was 2019 New Year's Day that I told you this was going to happen. And anybody can say whatever they want, but I told you this was going to happen. I told you this was going to happen. And like I'm telling you, you either branch out and make friends, or you won't have anyone like-minded. Evil has a way of making truth doubt itself. Remember that. That is how it operates, always, by obfuscating the truth. Never calling it a liar to its face, but obfuscating it completely. So, I'm going to let you guys go for this evening. I will try my best. I was hoping that I can get that article done today, but I could not because I had, doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And it took up most of my day. But I will have at it right now after the show and all morning tomorrow, and hopefully I can get it out because I'd love to let Peter know what big of a shill he is. God bless everyone. And remember, don't listen to anyone. Don't listen to me. Just listen to your inner voice. It'll tell you everything you need to know.
The doctor said to talk to him if I wanted to get off my meds, but I never called his office and poured the bottle in the garbage can. I'm stuck in this apartment and I'm anxious like the cops are here. I tried to call like all my friends, none of them are answering. Is this the moment where I can't control it? Got no appetite, I guess the party's over. I can't sleep at night and I keep rolling over cause my skin is itchy and the paranoia got me worried, sick, and it is so annoying. I've been throwing up, it looked like motor oil, but I chose to quit and now I can't avoid it. The right things to do are the hardest choices. Is this the moment when I need a donor? Liver failing from the liquor pouring, while the room is spinning, it ain't vodka soda. What is almost killing me is being sober. Talk about pitfalls, surrounded by brick walls. This is what kids call withdrawal. Deleted every number from my phone, I'm staying home. Really wish that I was drunk with all my friends. I'm gonna beat it or I won't and overdose. Really wish that I was high with all my friends. Never cared for therapists, my arrogance embarrassing. It isn't fair to tear with this. Addiction placed my parents in. I'm scared repair will never fix the voluntary negligence, the wear and tear my errors did. They almost had to bury me. Is this the moment where I screw up and relapse? Waste all my money on rehab. Can't take a pill from the doctor to relax. Lash out in anger whenever I react. Feel like a weak man, I don't want to be that. Living every day to get a buzz on the weekend. I'm in the deep end, fighting with demons. Trying to stay clean, I just really need a reason. My bones are shaking in my hands and feet. I see my rib cage, but I can't eat. I still wake up panicking, so I can't sleep. I just sit in the bathtub and try to breathe. Talk about pitfalls, surrounded by brick walls. This is what kids call withdrawal. Deleted every number from my phone, I'm staying home. Really wish that I was drunk with all my friends. I'm gonna beat it or I won't and overdose. Really wish that I was high with all my friends. I've never felt this bad before. I don't know if I'll make it. Don't have the strength to get off the floor right now, but I'm hoping and praying. My whole life I wanted more. This might be the end, but now I've had too much fun. It's over now. I loved what I hated. Deleted every number from my phone, I'm staying home. Really wish that I was drunk with all my friends. I'm gonna beat it or I won't and overdose. Really wish that I was high with all my friends. Deleted every number from my phone, I'm staying home. Really wish that I was drunk with all my friends. I'm gonna beat it or I won't and overdose. Really wish that I was high with all my friends.